Well, food toothers, we're here again. We're at the end of another long, laborious week, aren't we, food toothers? And we're knocking on towards blimmin' doomsday again, aren't we? In other words, Tuesday. But somewhere I read that apparently this week's one is the last one, thank God, of the Megan's bleeding podcast, whatever it's called. You know that one where she gets herself on old Madam Mount, whines about how sad her life is and one thing and another. Yes, and this week, food toothers, I had to have a lie down after listening to that crap I did. I couldn't believe it. Do you know what she did this week? Well, she doesn't like slut shaming or something, she said. Yes. And I did think to myself, well, that's a bit rich coming from you, love, isn't it? There you go. But whatever. So she doesn't like slut shaming. And I wonder how her sister in a wheelchair, Samantha, thinks about that. Yes. Because she's all for empowering women, isn't she, old Madam Mal? Yes, she is. She likes to empower women, basically, well, as long as they're not in wheelchairs, or her sister, or, do you know what I mean? Or Catherine, you know? She likes to empower them. And to this end, she got herself into a school. Yes, she inveigled herself into a girls' convent school over in, I don't know where it was, Los Angeles or somewhere. So, I mean, they should do something about their security, really, because, well, it's a private school, and if I was sending my kids to a private school and they were just letting, well, every ne'er-do-well willy-nilly onto their property to talk to the children, well, I'd have questions to ask, I would, food tubers. I'd want to be reimbursed, I would, because surely, where's the child safeguarding? How did she get herself into that school? But it put me in mind of something that quite is near to my heart, really, food tubers, because I don't know whether I've ever shared this with you before, but I am a survivor of a long-term narcissistic abuse. Yes, I am, in my own life. Yes, I am. And I've got some relations in Wales that, if you're watching me, relations in Wales, hi, relations in Wales, we all know a narcissist. Yes, we do. We know a narcissist. And it is a very malignant narcissist. Yes, it is. Yes. And this narcissist, well, what they used to do is they used to dress up and pretend to be, I don't know, get stuff off eBay and dress up in uniforms, really, basically, and say they're in the SAS and they were this and that, they're brigadiers, and they'd get themselves in schools and they'd lecture the children about what it's like to be in the SAS, despite the fact they've never been out their front door. Do you get me, capiche? And the schools just let them in, because the schools used to believe them. Despite the fact that, well, this particular narcissist was male, and they had bigger tits than me. Yes, if that's possible. They were. And they were bigger built than me as well. And they used to get all this uniform off of eBay, and they used to buy loads of medals and stick them all across the chest. They had more medals on their chest than bleeding Prince Andrew. Yes, they did. And they used to get themselves around the place in schools and talk to all the children, say, about all their daring deeds and daring ne'er-do-well life, being in the SAS and being brigadiers and being, I don't know, in charge of stuff. You know what I mean, militarily speaking, vootubers. Yes, and the schools used to believe them. And you see, it didn't matter what anybody said to the schools, they used to believe them. You see, that's narcissists for you. Yes, yeah, they're sort of, well, they're Walter Mitties, aren't they? And that's what Madam Mouse strikes me as. She's a bit of a Walter Mitty. And very often narcissists will get themselves around children because they always think that children will give them an air of authenticity. Yes, and you know Madam Mel, she's very authentic, isn't she? Yes, she oozes authenticity, doesn't she? So, and I mean, do you remember that time she dressed up in one of my red jumpsuits? Do you remember? It fitted me a lot better than her. And she took herself over to New York in the lockdown. And she kept all the children captive. Do you remember? About 110 degrees heat. And she read them all that bleeding spiteful book of hers. You know that book that she pinched off about 2 or 3 other people that wrote exactly the same book. But she wrote it, called it The Wench, and pretended it was different, but it weren't. You know? That's another thing narcissists do. They plagiarise other people's ideas. Yes, they do. Yeah, they plagiarise other people's ideas. Yes, they do. And anything other people achieve, they take for themselves. Yes, they do. And say they did it first. That's narcissism. And she got herself down to this school and she made all these little kids listen to that god-awful, boring book, The Wench. Yeah. And then, do you remember that very, very sad, I barely want to mention it really because it's disgusting. But that very sad event that happened down in Texas in Uvalde, you know, she was like shit off a bleeding shovel to get herself down there, wasn't she? You see, to get herself photographed. Look at me, I care. Oh, look, yeah. And to that end, she made all the other, well, the actual mourners had to move out of the way so she could get her pap shots of her looking sad about the children and one thing and another, because she's just a disgusting individual, really, VooTubers. There's no other way of putting it politely, really. And so this week's podcast, and it is a podcast, you do find yourself plodding all the way through it, right? And she got herself into a school. And she started talking to the children about what it means to be called a slut. Yes, or a bitch, or something or other. Which I find quite contemptible. Or is it just me? But you see, that's the way that narcissists roll. They always have to use children to sort of illuminate themselves. Yes, they do. And us other adults, we just stand by and idly let them do it. Because, well, if it was down to me, I wouldn't let a narcissist anywhere near children. Because the damage they do can last a lifetime, VooTubers. Yes, it can. Because they twist little kids' minds up. Yes. And even more so, obviously, if the kid is closely related to them, more so, yeah. But when they finish with people that are in their immediate vicinity, yeah, they start picking on random other people's random children. Yes, they do. They're wholly unsuitable to be around children, full stop, basically. You know, it's a bit like saying, well, you know, if you think, supposing, what's his name, Joe Stalin, yeah, do you know what I mean? He starts getting himself into schools and everything, yeah, and teaching the children how to kill 600 million people or something. Do you know what I mean? But doing it in a story that makes them look like, well, like they used to call him Uncle Joe, didn't they? You see? But he was a psychopathic narcissist, wasn't he? Slightly different. Or Pol Pot. You know what I mean? You wouldn't let them around kids, would you? But for some reason, that bleeding Madam Mao, she manages to inveigle herself around the place, she does. Yes, she does. And there's a lot of her to inveigle, isn't there, really, VooTubers, when you think of it? Yeah. So she got herself into this school. And she was chatting to these kids, right? And apparently, well, the school was on summer recess. So we're not sure who she was really talking to. Do you know what I mean? She probably trafficked some children in there or something, so she could, well, use them as her props in her podcast. Yeah. And she said that she doesn't like slut shaming. Yeah, she doesn't. No. So from now on, none of us are allowed to mention the porno movies or the yacht, are we, VooTubers? So anyway, that's narcissists for you. Yeah, they project out, you see. That's what narcissists do. And I think that really the whole world should put our foot down. And we should say no more. You should stop using children, whether they're your children or other people's children, well, to give yourself narcissistic supply. Which is a posh psychological term for blowing smoke up your own bleeding arse, VooTubers. So anyway, I'll leave that with you. Bye, VooTube. Bye, 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 bye.